when I was in the seminary, one of the most exciting classes that I ever took, besides the Bible, was English Etymology. English Etymology. English E-T-Y-M-O-L-O-G-Y. English Etymology. Now, along with this, this is Swinton's Word Analysis. This was our textbook that we had. It's reprinted. It's very old. In our English language today, they've changed so much in it that, and you know, especially with the critical race theory and all of these insane things that they're doing today. But I want to share these things with you because you might want to do some more study. A lot of my students out there, they'll go beyond my study, that I'll throw a little something out there for them, and then they'll go chase the rabbit all the way to the end of the rainbow, which is exciting for me. Now, after I got my appetite whet for the Bible and for English etymology, I began to study about different things about the English language, how it evolved and everything, and all the little sayings. And one of the things that I read about was hog on ice. And you remember hearing this in different movies, a hog on ice. Mm-hmm. Well, it has many expressions in here. Charles Earl Funk, and that one was exciting to me. I ate that one up. And another one here is History in English Words by B.B. Warfield, by Owen Warfield. Here, and I ate it up. Another one here is Word Origins and Aromatic Stories. You know, when I'm talking and preaching and everything, I use a lot of illustrations sometimes. And this is where you get some of these illustrations out of the English language itself. Here's another book that I have studied. It's called Family Word Finder, The Origins of Words. Now let's go and look at this a little bit. When I did not learn this in high school. I did not learn it in Bakersfield College. I did not learn it at Cal State University. I learned it in the seminary. I had one of my students one time, Dr. Susan Wynn. I was talking about, she was just so excited about my Bible classes that I taught Sunday school and everything at Valley Baptist Church. And I talked about the origin of sin in the human race, and then I talked about how it is infected from one family to one generation to the other, and the sin nature comes from the blood, from the sperm, from the father, not the mother. Not one drop of the mother's blood is in the child. It is from the father, and that is where the sin infection comes from. When I said that, she just went. She's a doctor, okay, from Cedars-Sinai University in New York. And next Sunday, she got up and she said, you know, I'm a doctor. I have very good high credentials and what I've done. And she said, I want to say something about Dr. Phillips. She said, he brought out a thing about the sin nature coming through the blood of the father. And she said, I didn't learn that in college. I didn't learn that in medical school. I didn't learn it in university. I learned it right here in in this medical school, right here in this theological class. And she said, he's 100% right. I went home and I called my professors. I talked to all my colleagues and everything. And finally we came to the conclusion that the blood of the Father is what infects the human race with sin, because of Adam's blood. Well, we're going to study this type of etymology, this elements of the English language. Etymology is a study which treats the derivation of words, that is, of the structure and the history of those words. English etymology, or word analysis, treats the deviation of English words. Where did they come from? Where did they come from? How did they evolve? You know, many times in the King James Versions, it uses words there in the King James Versions. In modern English, it means the absolute opposite meaning. The vocabulary of a language is the whole body of words in that language. The English vocabulary consists of all the words in the English language. Did you know that there was not an English dictionary until the early 1900s? They had never made one. It was such a complex language they didn't do it, and there was a man in England that decided to do it. And they tried to stop him in many, many ways, but he did it. He got it well on his way. The complete study of any language comprises of two distinct inquiries: the study of grammar of the language, and the study of its vocabulary. Word analysis is a study exclusively of the vocabulary of the English language. And as you study the English language, you'll find out that you don't know much about it. I went to Bakersfield College and I had a teacher there, and I went and I took the class 2 times because I got a B. She gave me a B, and I said, I'm going to take this class over again. She said, you got a B. I said, but it's not an A. A B is not an A. Well, it's only just a tiny bit. I said, I want an A. I'm going to take this class all over again. I'm going to repeat this class. She looked at me so funny, and I did. And I got an A the second time around. Not a B, but an A. But she made the English language so exciting. And I hope that I can do this a little bit for you and not be a boring thing. The term etymology, as used in grammar, must be carefully distinguished from etymology in the sense of word analysis. Grammatical etymology treats solely the grammatical changes in words, and does not concern itself with their derivation and deviation. The historical etymology treats of the structure, the composition, and the history of words, and thus the relation of loving, loved, to the verb love is a matter of grammatical etymology, but the relationship of lover and lovely and loveliness and love is a matter of historical etymology. The English language is very extensive. It doesn't have much of a backbone on its own. Many scholars say that the English language is an illegitimate or a bastard language because it has very little original sources of its own. In Webster's Unabridged Dictionary, there are 10,000 words, or 100,000 words, that is. But it should be observed that 3,000 or 4,000 serve all the ordinary purpose of the oral communication. Written communication. The Old Testament contains 5,642 words. Milton uses about 8,000, and Shakespeare, whose vocabulary is more extensive than that of any other English writer, employs no more than 15,000 words. Remember, there's 100,000 words. And by the way, I might say this, that many people believe now that Shakespeare was more than one person. He was more than one person. I've heard arguments on this, very extensive arguments, that Shakespeare was a compilation of many authors they called Shakespeare. The principal elements of the English vocabulary are words of Anglo-Saxon and of Latin and French Latin origin. Our legal terms in English came basically from Latin. Our scientific terms in English come from Greek. The Anglo-Saxon is the earliest form of English. The whole of the grammar of our language and the most largely used part of its vocabulary are Anglo-Saxon. Anglo-Saxon belongs to Low German, a division of the Teutonic stock of languages. its relations to the other languages of Europe, and all of which are classed together as Aryan or Indo-European family of languages, may be seen from the following table, which I'm going to read to you. The Celtic stock as Welsh and Gaelic. See Donald Grewar over there in Wales, Welsh and Gaelic. The Slavic stock as Russian. By the way, the Russian language is written with Greek letters. And much of the Russian language is Greek. The Indo-European family, the classic stock, are from Greek and Italian and Latin. By the way, Spanish and Italian and Latin, if you can read one, you can read the other just about. They're very close languages. The Latin, Italian, and Spanish are sister languages, and then French. Scandinavian, as Swedish girls, both of you girls are Sharon and Marilyn, both of you are Scandinavian, aren't you? A lot of Scandinavian blood in you. The Teutonic stock is German. And High German, as Modern German is, and Low German as Anglo-Saxon. The term Anglo-Saxon is derived from the names Angles and Saxons. Angles and Saxons. Two North German tribes who in the 5th century AD invaded Britain, conquered the native Britons, and possessed themselves of the land. The Low German languages are meant to be spoken in low, flat countries of North Germany, the low, flat countries of North Germany. Along with the coast and North Sea as Dutch, the language of Holland, as they are so called in contradistinction to the High German, or German proper. England means Angleland. Angleland.
Oh.
Angle, the Angles.
England.
The Britons spoke Celtic language, best represented by modern Welsh. Some British words are adopted into Anglo-Saxon and still continue in our language. They used to say the Queen's English a long time ago, or the King's English, or the Queen's language, or the Queen's English. The Latin element in the English vocabulary consists of a large number of words of Latin origin adopted directly into the English as various periods in time, but most of the Latin and English language is what? Legal terms. Now let's go back and say, why do we use legal terms in the English language from Latin? Well, the Catholic Church is the responsible for that. The Catholic Church took the language of the Bible away from the people, which was Koine, or Common Greek, or Universal Greek. Everybody could read the Greek Bible. The Catholic Church brought in the dark language, the Dark Ages. They forbid the Bible to be read in Greek, even though Constantine had 50 Bibles made, complete Bibles in what we call Uncial Greek, and he distributed them. 3 of those Bibles are in extent today, and that was around 350 AD. 3 of those Bibles are still in existence today: Codex Sinaiticus, Vaticanus, and Sinaiticus. They go back to that period of time. Later on, the Catholic Church forbid the language of the Bible to be Greek. And then they took it into Latin. Many of the priests did not know Latin at all, but they knew how to memorize the different formulas of the ceremonies. The common man could not have a Bible, and the Bible was to be spoken in Latin only. Now, why did they do that? If you look up here, the church history, you find they took over, but they started bringing in infant baptism, Mariolatry, a pope, indulgences, purgatory, Satan image worship, and if you read the Bible, you would go completely contrary to that. So they took the Bible out of the hands of the people. Now, all the educated people, the lawyers and doctors and everything, had to write their doctor's theses and master's theses in Latin. In Latin. And so that's how the legal language of the Roman Catholic Church was Latin. And all of the lawyers had to study Latin. All the doctors had to study Greek and Latin. The principal periods during which the Latin words were brought directly into the English language are the introduction of Christendom into England and by the Latin Catholic missionaries in 596 AD. The legal language. I hope you learned a little bit about that. The scientific language is Greek. At the revival of the classical learning in the 16th century by modern writers, the French Latin element in the English language consists of French words, firstly, and largely introduced into the English by the Norman French who conquered England in the 11th century AD. That's 1200s. French, like the Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese, is substantially Latin. But Latin considerably altered by loss of grammatical forms and by other changes. Now, a Greek has nominative, genitive, obligative, locative, instrumental, dative, accusative, vocative. That's 8 cases. Modern Greek has got like 2. The Latin is an inflected language. The German is an inflected language. The Russian is an inflected language, just as the Greek is. Latin is an inflected language. The 3 basic definite articles in Greek are ho, he, to. Ho, masculine, he, feminine, to, neuter. And you have masculine and feminine neuter words in the Greek language. But Latin considerably altered by loss of grammatical forms and other changes. As come into modern times, much of the languages have been altered by laziness. The Greek language was the most perfect language, I believe, that has ever been written. And God put His New Testament in Greek. And by the way, even the Old Testament Septuagint was in Greek, and Jesus spoke from that. The Norman French invaders brought it with them into England. They continued to use it for more than 2 centuries after the conquest. They were so numerous as the native population, the old Anglo-Saxon finally prevailed, though with an immense infusion of French words. In America, I have a southern accent. People tell me that. To me, it sounds just totally normal. I talk to some of those people back there in Tennessee and Kentucky and Texas and Oklahoma, and I say, "What do I sound like I have an accent?" And they said, "No. No, you just sound like one of them people out in Hollywood." My grandfather, which died when I was very young, was a Cherokee Indian. He spoke very little. But when he spoke just about like the words and the voice of Randolph Scott. He looked like Randolph Scott. He was very tall. And but he died very young because of World War I. His lungs were completely destroyed in World War I. He never could work after that. The French Latin words, that is, Latin words introduced to the French, can often be readily distinguished by their being more changed into a form than the Latin terms directly introduced into our language. In other words, they have the roots. And I'm going to read to you some things that we use, words we use almost every day. Have any of you ever had enemies? Enemies. Enemies. Okay, the word enemies come from inimicus, Latin, French, enemy, and English enemy. All right? Inimicus, enemy, and enemy. And then the word populus in Latin, pupil in French, and people. Now, I hope I said that right, Sharon, because you know French. Seigneur in Latin, sire in French. Do you see how many we have sires? All right? In Latin it's signor, and in the French it's sire, and in English it's sir. There are other elements in addition to its primary constituents, namely the Anglo-Saxon Latin and French Latin. The English vocabulary contains a large number of Italian, Spanish, Portuguese words besides various terms derived from miscellaneous sources. Like I said, many people say that the English language is an illegitimate language. It has very little of its own. It borrows from all other languages. The following are examples of words taken from miscellaneous sources. That is, from sources other than Anglo-Saxon, Latin, French, Latin, and Greek. The Hebrew. And I've told you about the word amen. Amen came from Persian. Amen. It goes into Hebrew, amen. It goes into Greek, amen. It goes into English, amen. And what it means is to stand up. It means to stand. It means to support. It means that it will stand on its own. When you say amen to something, you say, I will support it, I believe it. It's a fact. We have a word cherub. It comes from the Hebrew word cherub. Cherubim, actually. Cherubim means angels with wings, cherubim. Over the Ark of the Covenant, there are two cherubim. We got a word jubilee from Hebrew. We got a word leviathan from Hebrew. That's a supernatural big creature. We got a word manna. And the word manna from Hebrew means, what is it? What is it? Manna. It comes from ma in Hebrew, which is what? Manna, what is it? We got a word Sabbath. The word Sabbath comes from Sabbaton, or Sabbath in Hebrew, which means a completion. The complete week. We have the Sabbath. The last day of the week is the Sabbath. It's the completion. We have a Sabbath of months. We have a Sabbath of years. We have all of these Sabbaths. It means completion. Seraph comes from the word seraphim, which means flaming ones. The Arabic. Arabic now. Now we use the Arabic numeral system. We don't use the Greek, what we call the Roman numerals. That passed away. You know, if you read books, matter of fact, almost all of your movies are the year that they were done is in Roman numerals. But those are really not Roman numerals, are they? They are Greek numerals. They're Greek letters. The X, or the key, means 10. You have 3 of them, that's 30. Etc., etc., etc. The iota, the nu, 5. All of this. Arabic is amiral. We have alcohol. We have algebra. We have assassin. We have camphor. We have caravan. We have chemistry. We have cipher. We have coffee. We have elixir. We have gazelle and lemon and magazine and nobab and sultan. From the Arabic. In Turkish, we have bey, çubuk, choose, commissary, janissary, kiosk, and tulip. From the Turkish. The Persian, we have amen. Amen goes from the Persian into the Hebrew, and the writer of this didn't know that, evidently. We have the word azur in Persian. We have the word bazaar in Persian. I remember when I was spent about 11 days in Damascus, Syria. They had a great big bazaar, which was a covered market. Tremendous amount of things in that market. I mean, gold and silver, and Jacqueline Kennedy used to go there and shop. It is some of the most beautiful artwork in there that you could ever see, and furniture and fine things. The word bazaar, the word checkmate. Remember when you're playing chess, you have checkmate. You have chess from that word. You have Semeter from that word. You have demijohn. And you have device from that language. You have orange. You have paradise. Paradise goes from the Persian paradise into the Hebrew paradise, into the Greek paradiso, into the English paradise. And what it means, it's not translated in any of those languages, it means guarded pleasure park. Guarded pleasure park. We have the word pasha, and they have the word turban. Hindustani, we have the word calico, we have the word jungle, we have the word pariah, we have the word punch, we have rupee, we have shampoo and toddy from the Hindustani. The Malay, you get the words of muck, you get the word bamboo, bantam, gambogi, gong, gutta percha, and mango. Did you have mangoes tonight, Marilyn? You had some mangoes. That's where the word comes from. That's from Malay. Chinese. We get our word Nankin, and we get our word tea, T-E-A. Polynesian, kangaroo, taboo, and tattoo. Kangaroo, you know what a kangaroo is? We get a word taboo, that means forbidden, and tattoo, that's something you color your skin permanent markings. American Indian. Now, the American language borrowed a lot. Borrowed a lot. American Indian, we have maize. All corn came from America. We have the word moccasin, we have the word pemmican, we have the word potato, and tomato. These are all from American Indian because they developed these foods. We have the word tobacco, we have the word tomahawk, and we have the word wigwam, or
What
teepee.
about natives?
Wigwam and teepee. Celtic. Now Celtic, there's your Irish. We have the word bard, we have the word bran, we have the word brought, we have the word cradle, we have the word clan, we have the word druid, we have the word pony, and we have the word whiskey. They say the English, or not the English, but the Irish say two things they ate was their staples of diet: whiskey and fat. Whiskey and lamb's fat. And of course potatoes later, but they had to come from America. Remember, potatoes came from here. Scandinavian. We got a word bylaw from Scandinavian, bylaw. We got a word clown. We got a word dregs. The dregs of society, dregs. We got a word fellow. We got a word glade. We got a word hustings. We have the word kidnap. And we have the word plow, all from Scandinavian. The Dutch and the Hollandish, we have the word block. We have the word boom, bowsprit, reef, skates, slop, yacht. And remember those wooden shoes? Sabbat. Sabbat. And they, during the clothing, the manufacturing time when the people were trying to fight for higher wages in these mills, factory clothing mills, they took their wooden shoes and threw them into the looms, and that was what you call sabotage. Sabotage. The act of sabbating. Italiano. We got our word canto, we got our word cupola, we have the word gondola, we have the word grotto, we have the word lava, we have the word opera, we have the word piano, we have the word regatta, soprano, stucco, and vista. Spanish. We have the word armada. What is an armada? We have the Spanish Armada, a fleet of ships. We have the word cargo. You remember one time that Spain was the mistress of the seas before Sir Francis Drake and Elizabeth worked him over. Then England became the mistress of the sea. Armada, cargo, cigar, desperado, flotilla, a grande, mosquito. Mosquito means what? Little fly. A mulatto, punctilio, sherry, and sierra are all from Spanish. The Portuguese, we got a word caste, which means a caste of people. What, you're in a group, a caste of people. We got a word commodore, we got a word fetish, and we got a word mandarin, and we got a word palaver. Some of the old English, they use the word palaver. If you're going to talk to somebody, you palavered with them. Has this been exciting a little bit? I hope I haven't bored you plumb to death.
I like it.
We'll stop right here for now. Father, we thank you for this study from the English language, so we can understand it better, so we can preach better, and so we can understand our own language. I've always said that you don't learn English until you learn a foreign language. And I'm trying to teach people this exciting experiment. And I wanted to do this for 30 years, I guess, and I just decided to up and do it. Father, please use it in any way you can as it goes throughout the world. Help glorify yourself in it, from the Hebrew language, from the Latin language, from the Spanish language, or from whatever language. Help us understand where our words come from and where they go now. Please forgive me where I fail you. In Jesus' name I pray.